I'm asking all members, international societies, and Red Cross, and WHO, and law societies, international, to pressure on Israeli government to stop these procedures against the civilians and to stop the attack, to stop the war, stop the bombing against our civilians people. Please keep people living in peace. Israeli forces, one called me and asked me to evacuate the hospital, evacuate the patients, and evacuate everything within 2 hours, which is impossible. I told that I'm refusing this because I cannot distribute our patients. Most of them moderate cases, but others serious cases and needs more care and medical care, closed observation in the hospital. We losing humans because we have lack of facilities and medications and equipments. And the forces, Israeli forces, they are bombing the people, civilians people, children's, women's. This is actual true. And we are receiving most of injured patients in our hospital from childs and women's and elderly. We start to receive the injured from all over the northern area in Gaza Strip, and we received about 550 first 5 days, and the number increasing and increasing till now reach 575 injured patients, and the kind of injuries is different. This war, we observed a lot of patients. They came to emergency departments with bad odor and completely burned, and multiple shrapnels all over the body. And we have a lot of injured patients with gunshot or shrapnels in the head, and this is the most serious cases. So we received, and we haven't in our hospital department of neurosurgery. So these patients need to be treated in the advanced medical center, and we refer these patients after stabilization. The situation in general in Sector Gaza really very bad. The health system suffering from a huge shortage of medications and supplements and consumables and fuel. This is the largest problem. No way to keep and maintaining the activities and providing services in the hospitals without fuels, because we
the
have
latest news as what we have right now. Gaza hospitals have fuel for only 24 more hours, United Nations says. The United Nations Humanitarian Office, the OCHA, has warned that fuel reserves at Gaza hospitals will probably run out within the next 24 hours, while the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees say Israeli raids have created an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. Palestinians say Israel's announcement of restoring southern Gaza's water supply is a publicity stunt because its bombardment has significantly damaged water pipes under the ground. Israel has deployed thousands of troops, tanks, and weaponry along the border fence with Gaza as fears of a ground invasion of Gaza grow. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian told Al Jazeera Tehran will not be a bystander in the conflict, cautioning both Israel and the United States about potential substantial losses if the war between Israel and Hamas intensifies. Antony Blinken says the crossing to Egypt will open to aid as Israel prepares to strike Gaza. And this is a really big problem, because when you have this many people involved with in this incursion and also this exodus, this mass exodus that we're seeing, there's going to be a lot of people that can't make it through, and those who can make it through probably will be elderly, the disabled, the sick, those who can't leave the hospitals or their homes. They'll be killed in this incursion. And the border is currently closed. So let's take a look. Anthony Blinken said Sunday that the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza will reopen to humanitarian aid for Palestinians currently under siege by Israeli forces. It doesn't say for refugees, so don't get that confused. Now, Egypt will help with humanitarian aid, but they won't accept refugees. Now, I hear a lot about why is it that Arab states are not allowing Palestinians to take residency in these countries? Why don't they just leave Gaza and, basically flood, say, Egypt or Jordan, or Lebanon? Well, I mean, there's a process for this. We're not talking about a few hundred. We're talking about 1 million people. 1 million were told to leave Gaza City. There's nowhere to go but south. And I'm going to get to this later, and I'm going to show you a map of what this actually looks like in the long run, and also what this means as well, because this is going to have a lot of, say, ramifications for everybody involved. And the amount of people that are leaving Gaza City down to Khan Yunis and Wadi Gaza, the biggest urban area in all of Gaza is being evacuated into very smaller urban areas of the country. And this is going to be a big problem. So Palestinians continue to flee northern Gaza ahead of an expected Israeli strike against Hamas targets in the area 1 week after Hamas launched a multi-pronged attack inside Israel, killing more than 1,300 people. Rafah will be open, Blinken told reporters during a stop in Egypt on Sunday. And on top of this, the Israeli government had told people to leave Gaza City, and while they're leaving and heading for the border near Rafah, Amnesty International has now confirmed that yesterday Israeli warplanes systematically attacked a convoy of vehicles, killing 70 people, men, women, and children. There's video of it, of the aftermath. And through their own reports and investigation, Amnesty International said it came from Israeli warplanes. Didn't come from Hamas, as the government basically alluded to. So, where do these people go? There are people basically leaving south. They're getting bombed at the border near Rafah, and basically going back to the city saying, I'd rather die where I grew up, where I was born. These are the decisions. The United States and the coalition. What I mean by coalition, I'm talking about Canada, Australia, Germany, United Kingdom, France. Their silence is deafening. We saw this with the Balkans. We saw this in the Yugoslav war, the Kosovo war, where Slobodan Milosevic had a quote-unquote war against Muslims. Thousands upon thousands were dead. Some of the absolute worst atrocities I've ever read. Now, I've been reading true crime and studying forensic psychology and criminal psychology for many years. And I can say that the Kosovo war, the Yugoslav war, were some of the worst atrocities and genocides I've ever seen or ever experienced, read about. And the silence from the United Nations, who've really screwed that up by allowing Milosevic's army and generals I got one general, Radko something, Mladic. He was actually convicted. So was Milosevic. Radic was a mass murderer, killing, men, women, and children in schools and warehouses by the hundreds, just mowing them down, machine guns, bashing their heads in with, boot stomps and, hangings. Some of the absolute worst atrocities. And what we're seeing here is a silence from who? United Nations and the United States coalition. The United States didn't get involved with the Kosovo War. In fact, that was a big issue with Osama bin Laden, was that when the Muslims were being the victim in Kosovo, the world stood silent, and he took note of that. And of course, there's also that story about the two alleged hijackers of Flight 77 and who's the nexus of 9/11, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, served in the Kosovo War. Some point were in the Balkans. Whether they served under the legendary Islamic commander Ibn Khattab, I'm not sure, but while Israel is doing this, Israel's no longer the victim now. One thing you don't do, I tweeted this and quote on a little bit today, was that by destroying and liquidating schools, hospitals, homes, buildings, and liquidating and killing and indiscriminately killing Palestinian men, women, and children, you're not stopping Hamas. You're creating people to join Hamas and Islamic militant groups. You kill 30 people of my family, I'm going to join against the group that's actually fighting against you. Maybe that's what Israel wants. So they can get rid of two things, Hamas and the Palestinians. Well, that's not anti-Semitic to say so. That's Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet. We want to kill as many Palestinians as possible. I'm tired of repeating it. Gaza hospitals are overwhelmed with patients and desperately low on supplies as invasion looms. Khan Yunis, Gaza Strip medics in Gaza warned Sunday that thousands could die as hospitals packed with wounded people ran desperately low on fuel and basic supplies. Palestinians in the besieged coastal enclave struggled to find food, water, and safety ahead of an expected Israeli ground offensive in the war sparked by the Hamas deadly attack. That's why all of us, anybody watching this video, anybody who is, paying attention here, need to start really looking at the next 36 to 48 hours, all week long even. Because without electricity and without broadband and without fuel and without water and food, what could be the worst war crimes committed could be happening without anybody knowing it. And those who are victim of it will be dead. And if it's Israel that is conducting these war crimes, then how will you know about it? Because the Palestinians in these areas don't have broadband and don't have the messages or means to text to the world or to show the world what is going on. What Israel could do is basically say, oh, we destroyed a bunch of Hamas operatives over here. We destroyed this building. And yes, there were unfortunately women and children, but Hamas controlled that building. I mean, isn't that the excuse they've been using all these years? Since Hamas took over by force in 2006? A lot of people tend to believe, oh, they were voted in as a government. Well, the political arm was. The military arm, which is the Qassam brigades, actually committed a coup, forced Fatah, a secular group, out, and Hamas stood in. Now, what Israel could have done, if they really wanted to give it to Hamas, was destroy the hierarchy right there. No, because they serve a purpose. And that is, as long as Hamas is in Gaza, we can control Gaza, even though they don't control inside Gaza no more. And this is, I've had a person tell me, well, they don't control Gaza anymore. Well, yeah, they do, because even though they're not in Gaza anymore, they control the borders outside of it. Now, I'll show you a map just to, show you what I'm talking about. Israel forces, supported by a growing deployment of U.S. warships in the region, positioned themselves along Gaza's border and drilled for what Israel said would be a broad campaign to dismantle the militant group, which wouldn't take long. It's not like you don't know who these people are. You've kept tabs on them. You have files on them. I mean, the domestic Israeli intelligence arm, Shin Bet, and then you have the covert unit called the Mista Avrim that live amongst these people in Gaza. They know who they are. They know the leadership. Week of blistering airstrikes have demolished entire neighborhoods, but failed to stern militant rocket fire into Israel. The Gaza Health Ministry said 2,670 Palestinians have been killed, 9,600 wounded since the fighting erupted, more than the 2014 Gaza war, which lasted over 6 weeks. Israel, Hezbollah exchanged fire amid fears of regional escalation. Now, this is the bigger goal here, right? The goal is to entice Iran into a conflict and defeat them using the U.S. coalition military. Israel has declared its northern border with Lebanon a closed military zone after deadly clashes with Hezbollah, as fears grow of the opening of another front amid an ongoing bombardment of the Gaza Strip. Israel on Sunday warned civilians not to come within 2.5 miles of the Lebanese border, or else they may be fired upon. It told people living in border areas, which are filled with small rural towns and villages, to stay near shelters. This comes after one person was killed in Hezbollah attacks on Sunday morning, which were met with artillery fire from the Israeli side. The Lebanese political and military group said its attacks came in response to Israel's strikes into Lebanon a day earlier, which I covered. That killed 2 civilians and a Reuters cameraman, which was filming near the border. The ultimate goal of the Israeli government is to entice Hezbollah into a regional war, which will basically have the United States and coalition to basically come as the extra defense. That's the reason why there's ships in the Mediterranean. Like I said, it's not for Hamas. Hamas, the Qassam brigades can't fight against that. It's for Hezbollah, because Israel knows they can't beat Hezbollah because they lost to them in 2006. It was an embarrassing defeat for the IDF. All this talk about Israel being a formidable military, they can handle their own. No, they can't. It's like saying the United States, U.S. Army, would lose to Hezbollah. Can you imagine? It'd be embarrassment. It'd also invite people to attack the United States. Well, they're that weak. Hamas official says Iran and Hezbollah had no role in Israeli incursion, but they'll help if needed. A senior Hamas official on Monday said only a small number of top commanders inside Gaza knew about the wide-ranging incursion launched into Israel, but that allies like Iran and the Lebanese Hezbollah will join the battle if Gaza is subjected to a war of annihilation. Ali Bareka, a member of Hamas exiled leadership, spoke to the Associated Press in his Beirut office as Israel bombarded Gaza and vowed a total blockade of the Hamas-ruled territory. The surprise attack on Saturday caught Israel's vaunted military and intelligence services completely off guard. They weren't off guard. They knew what was going to happen and ignored it. Egyptian military and Egyptian intelligence shared intelligence saying that Hamas is conducting a big, wide-ranging attack. The only thing missing was time and date. But no security measures were taken. Just like 9/11, warnings of an impending attack by bin Laden. And in that one, planes were going to be used as weapons. No stricter security measures were taken. As hundreds of Hamas gunmen poured through holes blown in the border fence, rampaged through several towns. Rafah said the attack was planned by around a half dozen top Hamas commanders in Gaza, that even the group's closest allies were not informed in advance about the timing. He denied reports that Iranian security officials helped plan the attack or gave the go-ahead at a meeting last week in Beirut. Now, this talk about Hamas being given a pass or a green light to exist in Israel is not a conspiracy whatsoever. This is documented fact. And Netanyahu basically wanted Hamas on its feet. And what happened was that Netanyahu actually had a meeting with his top commanders and basically stated that he believed that the road to peace does not go through Ramallah, but bypasses it. And instead of the Palestinian tail wagging the Arab world, that he argued that peace should begin with Arab countries, which would isolate Palestinian obstinacy. Now, that's what happens with the peace agreement with Saudi Arabia, which was supposed to be the icing on the cake for Netanyahu, which he spent years in trying to coordinate peace deals with the Gulf and the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, even though Netanyahu did not invent the policy for separation between Gaza and the West Bank, or the use of Hamas as a tool to weaken the PLO, that came under I forgot the prime minister back in that time. Rabin, maybe? Well, I'm not too sure. However, Netanyahu adopted that way of thinking. But like I said, during a meeting with his top commanders, he added that the preservation of Hamas's rule in Gaza would be used as a tool for strengthening the separation between the Strip, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, because the West Bank has Fatah, and the Gaza is ruled by Hamas. Now, Responsible Statecraft once wrote that, and this was in a recent article, that in 2018, for example, Netanyahu argued that Qatar would transfer millions of dollars a year to finance Hamas, embodying the comments made in 2015 by Bezalel Smotrich, who is a Knesset member, and he's actually the finance minister and the West Bank commander, overlord, actually, and that he considered the Palestinian Authority the burden and Hamas as an asset. Now, Galit Distel Arbatrian wrote an article in May of 2019, who's a Knesset member herself and a part of the Likud party, that when she was yet to enter politics and was a known Netanyahu supporter, she said, and I'll quote you, quote, and Netanyahu, in a kind of outrageous, almost unimaginable restraint, does not do the easiest thing, getting the IDF to overthrow the Hamas organization, end quote. And she was asked why. And she said, if Hamas collapses, Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, will control the Strip, Gaza. If he controls the Strip, and that's the Palestinian Authority, if they control the Strip, there will be voices from the left that will encourage negotiations and even a political solution, as well as a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria. And that this is the real reason why Netanyahu does not eliminate Hamas. And remember that meeting I talked about with top commanders and Likud party members? Well, this is a direct quote from Netanyahu. And this actually comes in an article from Haaretz. You need a subscription to read it, but he says, quote, anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state needs to support strengthening Hamas. This is part of our strategy to isolate Palestinians in Gaza from Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, end quote. And even though Israel had withdrawn from Gaza since 2007, it still maintains tight control over the territory through a land, air, and sea blockade. Since then, Gaza for 17 years has been totally cut off from the rest of the world. Basically a prison. And there was a UN report in 2022 that the blockade had been fiercely criticized by this report as having a profound impact on living conditions in Gaza and undermined Gaza's economy, resulting in high unemployment, food insecurity, and aid dependency. Aid dependency on who? Egypt, Lebanon, and Israel. Now, just to show you what the map looks like, right? I'll make myself disappear. Here's the Erez crossing. Here is Gaza City. This is the most densely populated area in all of Gaza. All right, this is Israel. Here's Gaza. Here it is. Here's Gaza, right? Okay. The urban areas are in yellow. The refugee camps are in gray. The border crossings are in blue. Now, the no-go areas, this is all Israeli military secured. High-risk areas are right before that. High risk. So that means the Israeli military control all of this. Anybody living here can't get out or need permission. Okay? So the displacement comes here. This is where the military's going to enter this week. So 1.1 million people have to go here in places like Khan Yunis, which is being completely destroyed, as I talked about in yesterday's video. And this is the second most densely populated area in Gaza. So there really is hardly anywhere to go. This is Rafah. The Kerem Shalom goods crossing, that's for Egypt, bringing in the goods. Egypt closed its border. The Rafah crossing, which is being systematically bombed by Israeli military. For those who were told to go to the border to leave Gaza, they were killed. So we're going to keep, updating you. I'm going to keep updating you through what's going to happen in the next couple of days. I don't see an end to the conflict quite yet, although I don't think Israel can really afford a regional conflict unless the United States is ready. And already we're starting to see a gradual removal of ourselves from Ukraine into this conflict. All depends, excuse me, all depends on the reaction of Hezbollah and whether Israel antagonizes them. And that's going to happen with what's going to happen this week in Gaza City. If there is an overwhelming amount of people getting killed, Hezbollah is going to react. And then we got a lot of problems to talk about. And I mean, this will be bad because the United States is going to get involved. And if they're getting involved, then the regional conflict that I feared a couple of years ago, that Iran, Lebanon, and Syria will create all-out war in the region. So, with the, I'll keep you updated and without bias, without prejudice, the best I can. And I'll see you probably tomorrow with we'll have updated news. And I'll do a video, and like I said, I'll keep you informed as always. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.